Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. This is the Millstone Report. My name is Paul Harrell, and as always, we can't do the program without you watching every single day. I want to remind everybody this portion of the broadcast brought to you by Redvive Health. Go to redvivehealth.org/Paul and learn about the healing power of red light. This is a technology that you can have in your home. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about. You can also call 866-726-8483. We got a great show for you. We're going to continue to cover Donald Trump's trek through the Middle East, obviously in Saudi Arabia earlier this week, yesterday in Qatar or Qatar. Today he's in the United Arab Emirates. Really, with each successive stop, I mean, he's being treated like royalty. This is essentially rolling out, for lack of a better term, rolling out the red carpet, all of these, ceremonies and things like that. It's pretty incredible to watch. The economic news is good. Donald Trump obviously inking huge deals in Saudi Arabia, an even bigger deal in Qatar, and now expected to announce more deals in the United Arab Emirates. So, but I wanted to take a few moments. I said something yesterday on the program about Donald Trump's speech in Saudi Arabia, and it's still really making the rounds online, and people are really just kind of taken aback by this admission. I mean, Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia basically admitted that American foreign policy has been a failure. The foreign policy that has essentially existed my entire life and then some. I've talked about basically war in the Middle East has been a staple. It's been baked into American foreign policy my entire life. If you take the Gulf War, which started in the 90s when I was, 6 years old, and then you take what happened when we go into Afghanistan after 9/11, and then we go into Iraq, and it's just kind of always been a thing. America is going to not only be at war in the Middle East, but we're also going to lecture countries about how they need to adopt democracy, even if in those cultures that is such a foreign concept and actually a show of weakness, even if those cultures just historically and traditionally want heavy-handed rulers or dictators or authoritarians. We have essentially been lecturing them. And I think really the lecture has been the virtue signaling. I think this was really all about fleecing countries for money and getting people to essentially bow down to the Western financial system, no matter how corrupt it is. I think that's a large part of what it's been about. And what Donald Trump is essentially saying, from my point of view, is, hey, maybe there's a different way. Maybe we can just agree on maybe general things like being wealthy and prosperous, everybody being wealthy and prosperous, instead of us constantly bombing. I just heard J.D. Vance say that this speech in Saudi Arabia that Trump gave a couple of days ago really marks an end to America and America being a preachy and the preachiness of it. And then he even compared us to China, that China goes into these developing nations and has a bag of money with them. We come to these developing nations and we preach at them, and then I don't think J.D. Vance said this, but traditionally we also come with the American military, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're also going to talk about Mark Levin. Mark Levin has been triggered not only by Trump's Middle Eastern trip, but radio talk show host Mark Levin has also been triggered by Tucker Carlson and the types of guests that he's been having on. Called Tucker Carlson, if you got kids in the room, maybe you don't want to hear this type of language. He called Tucker Carlson, quote, a bastard, end quote. In one of his recent radio monologues. We've got that audio for you as well today. Also, the Supreme Court is hearing this case over whether birthright citizenship is constitutional. So far, according to the audio-only recordings, Amy Coney Barrett seems like she's going to be a little bit of a problem. I don't really think that the women on the court, specifically the only so-called, right of center Justice Coney Barrett, I don't think she has the ability to put aside her emotions, to be quite frank, and rule the case on its merits because of this idea that we're talking about kids, we're talking about babies that are born here being denied citizenship, or talking about other people who have, been born here, but, their parents came into the country illegally, and just the societal upheaval that would, to actually interpret what the law actually says, what it's actually meant for. Donald Trump actually reminded that this law was passed essentially a year after the Civil War ended, and it specifically had to do with the children of slaves, not people who come to America on vacation who are pregnant and happen to have their baby here, and how no other country does it this way except the United States of America. I just don't think Amy Coney Barrett is going to have the ability, quite frankly, to, and of course John Roberts, who is squishy anyway and just sees himself in a recent speech, sees himself as a check on executive authority. I don't see this going in Trump's favor. From what I can tell based on the audio recordings as well, they're really getting hung up in, because this has to do with nationwide injunctions. This has to do with a fairly recent concept of nationwide injunctions. Nationwide injunctions from these lower courts didn't actually start until the mid-'60s. Maybe there's an argument that there was one case in the 40s, but they really ramped up. They started in the 60s, but right up until the civil rights. Justice Thomas pointed this out. America survived perfectly well up until the civil rights movement. But they really kicked into hyperdrive in 2007 based on environmental whack jobs. These lower courts essentially, trying to fight climate change or trying to, protect the environment. That's when it really started to kick up. At least that's what some of the arguments that I've heard so far in the court right now. So we're going to get to all of that, as well as I think we've got one clip. I'm already against women clergy. You don't have to convince me. We'll have a segment of that, as well as Matt Walsh sparring with atheist James Lindsay over Arby's fast food. Oh, it's pretty fun. All right, so let's get into it, shall we? First, Donald Trump, while he was in Qatar, decided to stop at the Air Force base that we have there. Surrounded by troops. Here is Secretary of State Pete Hegseth introducing President 47.
And that is why it is a distinct honor to introduce to you the 45th and 47th President of the United States, our Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump.
So, anyway, he said a few things, said some good stuff, talked a little bit about Russia celebrating the end of World War II. But he said one thing in his speech that I thought was interesting. He says, I'm going to always do I'm paraphrasing, my duty to you, meaning the troops. Talked about pay raises for the troops, but then he talked about how he would do his duty to them. And I thought that was an interesting line in the speech. He kind of glossed over it, but whoever wrote that for him, I thought that was an interesting line. We talk a lot about a government that loves its people versus a government that hates its people. And, of course, that can be interpreted, different ways. But I just think what is so evident as all of this corruption in our government, in the uniparty, you've got these senators now that don't want to codify the Doge cuts, which I think means that, honestly, at this point, every one of us should rightfully understand there's a probability that the Republican senators that don't want to codify the end of foreign aid, not Doge necessarily, but that's part of Doge, the end of this foreign aid, I think every one of us should be suspicious that their family members or entities that they control are getting money via foreign aid. You give it to some country or NGO, then they tithe a portion of it back to your family member. Or I think every single Republican who is against ending foreign aid in all of this fraud and abuse and USAID and everything, all of them should be investigated just for that alone. So, what's become apparent is that our government hates us and has for a very long time. Oh, they say that they love us. They say they love us. They say they're doing all of this good stuff, but by their actions, we know their fruit. And while we're spending trillions of dollars to fight wars my whole life, essentially my whole life, America back home is, in total shambles. was Jack Posobiec was asking about our airports the other day on X, and he said, what's the worst airport? And there was, and I'm not as well traveled as probably the average person my age who's in this particular field, but I don't know if anybody's been to the Memphis International Airport, but I threw that on the list. Talk about our nation's infrastructure. Oh my goodness. So let's get to it. This is the speech. This is the part of the speech that is really making the rounds. And I want to camp out here for just a little bit because I still can't believe that Trump actually said this. Listen to this.
The transformations have been unbelievably remarkable. Before our eyes, a new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. We don't want that.
Not bombing each other out of existence.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to...
I want you to remember that phrase. It's going to be relevant later in this segment. Nation builders and neocons.
Develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love.
It's an incredible rebuke of neocon foreign policy. American foreign policy in general has been neocon. An incredible rebuke of, somebody like George W. Bush, somebody like George H.W. Bush. So I want you to compare what you just heard to this speech. This is George W. Bush, the Mission Accomplished speech on May 1st, 2003. This is what it sounded like.
Captain Card, officers and sailors of the USS Abraham Lincoln, my fellow Americans, major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
Such a trip, man. To go back into headspace. Where were you when this speech was given?
And now our coalition is engaged in securing and reconstructing that country. In this battle, we have fought for
and we're in reconstructing the country. All right, a little bit more.
Cause of liberty and for the peace of the world. Our nation and our coalition are proud of this accomplishment. Yet it is you, members of the United States military, who achieved it. Your courage, your willingness to face danger for your country and for each other made this day possible. Because of you, our nation is more secure. Because of you, the tyrant has fallen and Iraq is free.
A lot of hubris Obviously, we have the benefit, we have the massive benefit of hindsight. It's now 2025. Again, this speech that you just heard, part of it, 2003, May 1st, 2003. Iraq, we're going to now rebuild the country. They're now free. We freed them from the tyrant. And yet, now we know that Iraq and Saddam Hussein actually was keeping Iran in check, which is now the next country on the chopping block for this plan, to go to war with 7 countries. It's just fascinating. I mean, you look at it, 9/11 happens, and we go to war in Afghanistan. We leave, so we go to war in Afghanistan almost immediately, right, after September the 11th, right? So 2001, 2002. We don't leave till August 30th of 2021, and of course we know what happened when. Of course we know what happened then. It was a disastrous withdrawal. Trump was planning to withdraw anyway, but Biden basically gave it all away. Then you look at Iraq. We go to Iraq March 20th of 2003. We don't finally leave there. The last combat troops finally withdraw December of 2011. So when people say endless wars, this is exactly what they mean. Endless wars. And and we're just supposed to believe it's a coincidence that America's not addicted to war in the Middle East when, say what you want, we did pull out of Afghanistan, ending this 30 years, basically, a 30-year war for all intents and purposes. And we're out, and now we got people saying we got to go right back in. We got Lindsey Graham saying, who, by the way, is being primaried by Mark Lynch in South Carolina. Look into Mark Lynch. We've interviewed him. He's a great guy. You've got all of this stuff going on where it's like we got to be pulled right back in. We just left Afghanistan. We finally left Iraq 10 years earlier, but now we got to go back in. We got to deal with Iran this time, is what we're being told. We got a preemptive strike. We got to strike them. All over weapons of mass destruction 2.0. This time it's about weapons-grade uranium. And now, in the last 2 weeks, Fox News running these headlines, they found 2 new secret nuclear facilities that Iran's been hiding and nobody knew about. And Fox News has just discovered it. And it's all out, and it's all about Iran, Iran, Iran. All of this happening right before Donald Trump goes on this Middle East tour, trying to ink these deals with countries that we've been told our whole lives are hostile, are barbaric, are irrational, and hate America. And I'm not saying that there aren't countries. See, that's the thing. I'm not saying there aren't countries that hate America. I'm not saying there aren't forces within countries that hate America. But the situation, if we want to use, again, the word from yesterday, diplomacy is a lot more gray. People want to make it black and white. And when you get, and not to say that it will never get black and white, but when you start off black and white, it tends to end with dead American soldiers in the Middle East. People voted for Trump because they didn't want more forever wars. This much is clear to me. Pretty nuts, though. You listen, that George W. Bush speech there, man, that is crazy. Go back and listen to the whole thing if you really want a good perspective versus what Trump is saying in Saudi Arabia or said in Saudi Arabia. It's pretty incredible stuff. And now we have this huge development. According to NBC News, an Iranian official is now saying they are willing to sign a nuclear deal with Trump in exchange for lifting economic sanctions. NBC News reporting a top Iranian official says Tehran would forgo highly enriched uranium and nuclear deal with Trump. The comments from a member of the Supreme Leader's inner circle appear to be the clearest public statements yet on Iran's willingness to reach an agreement with the United States. So this is for some neocon hawk Senate Republicans. This is a no-go because they want. So this has to do with keeping the uranium enrichment. What they've signaled is they want to keep the Iranian enrichment below nuclear grade. They still want to be able to have, nuclear power. Somebody named Ali Shamkhani, a top political, military, and nuclear advisor to Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is one of the most senior Iranian officials to speak publicly about the ongoing discussions. He said Iran would commit to never making nuclear weapons, getting rid of its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium, which can be weaponized, and agree to enrich uranium only to lower levels needed for civilian use and allow international inspectors to supervise the process in exchange for the immediate lifting of all economic sanctions on Iran. This is what's being proposed. If this is true, this is a big breakthrough. Donald Trump's been saying he wants diplomacy. Derek Evans tweeting, President Trump is the president of peace, Iran ready for nuclear deal. But now we get to Mark Levin. Mark Levin, over the past, I guess, 3 or 4 days, has been counter-signaling the Trump administration. Certainly he did on his show on Sunday leading up to President's Middle East trip. He has been, well, this is what he said now. He is now countering once again. He said, the president insisted on the total dismantlement of the Iranian nuclear program. Mark Levin says that means the nuclear centrifuges at the heart of the program must be eliminated. The president knows this. The overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans know this. They just issued a powerful letter saying so. Military and nuclear experts know this and have said so for many months, he says. What's interesting here is that's not what President Trump is saying. President Trump is now saying Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Now, he may have said we've got to completely dismantle all of their nuclear facilities. He may have said that at some point in the past. As a matter of fact, I'm sure he probably did. But as of late, he is simply saying Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, this was President earlier this morning while in the United Arab Emirates. This is actually what he said.
Probably read today the story about Iran has sort of agreed to the terms. They're not going to make, I call it in a friendly way, nuclear dust. We're not going to be making any nuclear dust in Iran. And we've been strong. I want them to succeed. I want them to end up being a great country, frankly, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. That's the only thing. It's very simple. It's not like I have to give you 30 pages worth of details. There's only one sentence. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
He wants Iran to be a great country and not have a nuclear weapon.
And I think we're getting close to maybe doing a deal without having to do this. There's 2 steps. There's a very, very nice step, and there's a violent step. The violence like people haven't seen before. And I hope we're not going to have to do this. I don't want to do the second step. Some people do. Many people do. I don't want to do that step. So
saying he doesn't want to go to war with Iran, which, you know, this is a really complete odds with what Mark Levin is saying, who is actually affiliated with, in the Trump administration. He's on some council. He goes on, Levin goes on, I have no idea if this NBC report is accurate, but in plain English, this would leave Iran's centrifuges spinning at the lower level. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, to avoid war, yeah, which can later be ramped up for nuclear bombs. So this is the line. This is the new battleground here, potentially. And we'll have to wait, and we'll have to see what happens. This is what he was talking about earlier. Again, if Mark Levin has been really melting down about, in a lot of ways, over Trump's Middle East, being friendly, being diplomatic with all of these Middle Eastern countries, Qatar included. So here is Matt Gaetz over here. I don't think we've ever played a clip. This is, I think, the first clip we've played of former Congressman Matt Gaetz on his show. He was interviewing a guy by the name of Kurt Mills, and he's the executive director of the American Conservative magazine. Over this kind of situation, this tense standoff between neocons, which, by the way, according to Mark Levin, neocon is an anti-Semitic slur.
There is a certain critique being launched at Trump from like the Mark Levin wing of the Fox News green room, saying that this is an insult to Israel, that any trip to the Middle East has to revolve around Israel. President Trump seems to be carrying Israel's water, asking these other countries to help build momentum for the Abraham Accords. But
matter of fact, he said that this new Syrian leader or dictator signaled that once their country, once the sanctions are lifted, which Trump has said they're going to lift the sanctions on Syria, that he would be interested in joining the Abraham Accords.
Is there something to take note of here, that there's a diminution in sort of the Israel first wing of MAGAism and republicanism?
I mean, I think it's the psychic tell. I mean, read the guy's posts. I mean, he's utterly histrionic. He's everything's all caps. He's making things up. There are open typos in half the things he's writing. So either the person he's dictating to is messing up, or he himself is messing up. It's just not, like, this is somebody who has interview space with the president. This is somebody who has an enormous following. This is somebody who is a brand name. But this is also somebody who's arguably not a very serious person. And so I think it's a conflict. And I would be fascinated, frankly, to see Levin and Trump sit down face to face and see Levin talk to President Trump like he talks to the internet.
That's pretty good. So that brings me to my next portion of the program. Mark Levin has now gone on the radio and attacked Tucker Carlson, and I wouldn't spend so much time on this if it just wasn't so fascinating, because well, you just listen for yourself.
But he posts this, and then I posted this. By the way, neocon is a pejorative for Jew. Unbelievable.
So this is Witkoff. So Steve Witkoff, who is the president's envoy for peace, being diplomatic, he went to the press and he said, we're trying to end the war, told the press, but Israel's making it difficult. And he also did another interview, and when he said, and he talked about neocons. Steve Witkoff specifically said the neocons just want war. That's all they want. And he used the specific word neocon. Mark Levin, and we covered this on the show, he retweeted that and said neocon is a pejorative for Jew. And so I'm thinking, oh, that's strange. I mean, so we're not allowed to use that word anymore because it's somehow anti-Semitic? Is that what Levin is saying? Which is just, I think that's preposterous. Neocon, we've been using the word neocon, and just because some neocons obviously happen to be Jewish, that doesn't mean all Jewish people are neocons. There's people who are not Jews that totally, at least in modern day, and of course he's going to say all the neocons are dead. I get that. But it's just preposterous, and it's just, once again, it just shows you how fragile somebody like Mark Levin is when foreign policy starts to change. And, isn't George W. Bush foreign policy? Listen.
You see, all the neocons are gone. So why do they keep using the word neoconservative? Notice they don't use hawk, interventionist, neocon. Why do they keep saying neocon? Because many of the neoconservatives are old-time, left-wing, Democrat Jews. Chatsworth knows it. I know it.
So he's using the word, he's calling Tucker Carlson Chatsworth, Chatsworth Osborne Jr., and that this is, whatever. I mean, for somebody who loves Rush Limbaugh, this was Rush Limbaugh's nickname for Tucker Carlson back when Tucker Carlson wore a bow tie all the time. Say what you want. I mean, yeah, Mark Levin, call him whatever he wants, but let's just be clear here. Mark Levin is no Rush Limbaugh.
And many of the people that use that phrase either don't know what they're talking about, but in the magazines and on the internet, they know it.
So we can't use the word neocon now.
So they're not going to say the Jews are dragging us into a war. They'll say Israel is, Netanyahu is. They're not going to say the Jews this and the Jews. So they use neocon.
So is there no way to be anti-war? I mean, he's setting up a rhetorical framework where, nobody can be anti-war. You can't. I mean, I guess maybe he's okay with hawkish and warmonger, but pretty soon that won't be okay either.
Chatsworth is smart enough to know what he's doing.
Tucker. He's talking about Tucker.
He may have transitioned into what he's become today, but he knows what he's doing. I know what he's doing.
What's he doing?
Now, when I wrote this, by the way, neocon is a pejorative for Jew, unbelievable. Mr. Producer, does that say I called the envoy an anti-Semite?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what I would
You're
infer.
either stupid or diabolical to suggest that I did.
So he says that doesn't mean that Witkoff is an anti-Semite. That's the way I took it. I think that's the way everybody took it. I don't, it says, but he says that's not. He didn't mean that Witkoff was an anti-Semite. Okay.
Take your pick. I'm no fan of the envoy. But I never called him a traitor. I know how to say traitor. And I never called him an anti-Semite.
Here's the thing with Levin, though. He frequently refers to people who don't want more Americans dead in the Middle East as the fifth column, which is a way to call people. He says it all the time. He's been saying it certainly in the last 5 days, which is another way of calling somebody a traitor, somebody working for the enemy secretly within a government. It's a form of espionage where you have sympathies for the enemy. So when he says that, he calls people isolationists, or he calls them anti-war or whatever, he also throws in the fifth column in America. What he's calling them is essentially traitors. He uses it all the time.
And this is really precious coming from our friend Chatsworth Osborne Jr., who's brought in a conga line. A conga line of miscreants, malcontents, and worse, in my opinion. And I say this as a red-blooded American, that a lot of people are getting sick and tired of this game. They're getting turned off by this. The American people do not want the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran to get a nuclear weapon. They don't want them to have missile technology where they can put a nuclear warhead on an intercontinental ballistic missile and hit the United States. And the fact that they don't want that doesn't make them a warmonger, a neocon, or anything else. It makes them patriotic Americans. That's number one.
Weapons of
Number
mass destruction.
Two, I am
Hussein,
hoping, you are hoping that Donald
WMD.
Trump figures out some kind of deal that nobody else has figured out yet, but he's capable of it, to stop them, short of war. But many of us are skeptical. Why? Because we have a brain. Because we know the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran is a terrorist regime that has violated every piece of paper it's ever signed. That's why we're at the 11th hour. That's why Donald Trump's having to deal with it. We know what terrorism means as much as we know what neocon means. So if you're trying to stop the Iranian regime, which chants day in and day out, death to America, death to America, death to America, and tries to assassinate our president, you're not a warmonger, you're a peacemaker. That's what you are.
Wow. So Levin is the peacemaker. Levin is calling himself a peacemaker, not a warmonger. That's rich. The inversion of terms here, I think, is really showing. It's making the crash out obvious for those of us who voted for Trump because we don't want to go to war. We want peace.
You're not a neocon. The neocons are dead. People use neocon, many people, innocently. They don't know what it means. He knows what it means.
So Carlson's an anti-Semite.
And my point to our envoy was, why are you using a word like that?
Well, Levin, I mean, he's using the word that President Trump used himself. Donald Trump used it in Saudi Arabia. Let's listen to Donald Trump again.
And it's crucial
he
for
used the word
wider
neocon.
world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like...
Weird. So Witkoff uses it. Donald Trump uses it. I guess Tucker Carlson uses it. By the way, I mean, this headline, Tucker Carlson triggers Mark Levin. Just Tucker Carlson existing has triggered Mark Levin.
Because you don't even know what it means.
So Donald
as
Trump,
do others.
you don't know what neocon means. Stop using it, Trump.
And so the point was to let him know.
Oh,
And it's a pejorative. What
he
is
was
a
just
pejorative
educating
for?
us.
And it's unbelievable that he spews it. And he'll keep spewing it, and others will too. But I don't have to pretend I'm Helen Keller, that I don't see and I don't hear, and neither do you. And neither do you. And there's a whole pattern over there with Chatsworth Osborne Jr. A whole pattern. Now, he's free to do what he wants. I believe in free speech. Go ahead, buy a subscription. Do whatever you want. It's perfectly fine by me. But don't screw with me, you little bastard.
There we go. Mark Levin. Mark Levin, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't want to be screwed with, and then he called Tucker Carlson a bastard. So that's kind of the state of things right now, which honestly, the fact that Mark Levin is so upset, I think bodes well for world peace. I'm going to be honest. Mark Levin being this upset and attacking Tucker Carlson and Steve Witkoff, and I think by extension Donald Trump for using a word like neocon, saying it's a pejorative for the word Jew, I think that bodes well for world peace. It just bodes well for the fact that however we've been doing things in America my entire life, again, Afghanistan, October 7th, is that right after 9/11, we go into Afghanistan in October of 2001, and we leave August 30th, 2021, Iraq, March 20th, 2003, we leave finally December of 2011. Nation builders and neocons, go listen to the George W. Bush speech. I mean, it's all just, it's failed the American people. And it's resulted in dead Americans in the Middle East. And this is one of the reasons people voted for Donald Trump. It's one of the reasons people voted for Donald Trump. Before we do anything else, I want to tell you about Red Vive Health and the healing power of red light. I told you yesterday that I've been using red light therapy on my feet, and I've gotten incredible results. I probably shared too much information. We talked to Matt Troy on Monday about this incredible technology, clinical strength red light panels, properly powered so that you can actually get the benefits of these rays in targeted doses that are naturally emitted by the sun as the sun rises and the sun sets. Red and near-infrared light, two different spectrums, and you can toggle between the two or use both at the same time on these panels. There's a timer on it. Two wavelengths naturally emitted by the sun. In targeted doses, these waves have a healing effect on the body. It sounds like a catch-all, folks, but trust me, it is. These things work. The red light is absorbed by your skin, which leads to enhanced skin health, collagen production, and anti-aging. For real, ladies, anti-aging. Near-infrared light, the other spectrum, penetrates deeper into the body, which stimulates the mitochondria of your cells, reaching the cells of your bones, the cells in your muscles, the cells in their tissues, the cells in your organs, all your cells. And it's incredible, the research that they have on their website about this thing called photobiomodulation. That's the actual scientific term for what your cells are doing when they respond to red light, and how your cells and mitochondria actually love photons. And it stimulates blood flow. You can heal wounds, you can recover faster from workouts at the gym, or you can just get more energy and much better sleep. I want you to go right now and try it. Do the research, redvivehealth.org/Paul. There you'll get a discount of 15%. Now, some of you may look at the price and kind of balk a little bit, but I just want you to understand something. This is stuff Big Pharma doesn't want you to know, and these are clinical strength panels right in your home, so the price point actually I don't think is bad at all. There's 0% interest financing available, and there's also a 60-day money-back guarantee. You can try this for 60 days. Keep your box. Try it for 60 days. If you don't like it, send it back. And we talked to Matt Troy. No one sends it back. They don't have anybody sending this thing back because it doesn't actually do what they say it's going to do. 60-day money-back guarantee, 0% interest financing. I want you to do this now because I want the people that listen to this show to actually get healthier in a world full of toxins and poison. Shop right now at redvivehealth.org/Paul. Actually, we're going to take 60 seconds, and we're going to hear from our good friend, Mike Lindell.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
All right, so make sure you use the promo code PH. You see it there. Right now, in the middle of big, huge summer savings, up to 80% off, MyPillow.com. I love their slippers. Although in the summer, maybe you're not really, into the house shoes. But look, they actually have beach wear now. They have beach sandals. As well as the towels. I mean, we have the sheets and the pillows, but when we got the towels, they're high quality towels. They're really, really good, and I think you'll really enjoy them. Just make sure you use my promo code PH so that you can save big when you do that. Folks, the rest of the program, I want to thank our last sponsor of the show, Curable Premium Health, and the incredible CBD products that they have on their website. Obviously, you want to use promo code Paul20, and we will tell you more about the healing power of CBD when we get a little bit later in the program, towards the end of the show. But I want to make sure you go to curable.com, Kuribl.com, use promo code Paul20. Okay, so let's get to this, kind of our last coverage of the Middle East situation. This was Syrian President Donald Trump announcing in Saudi Arabia a couple of days ago that he's going to be lifting the financial sanctions against Syria. Here's the Syrian president, Shara, in a translated speech. I just want you to hear just a portion of this.
My dear fellow citizens, the path and the road is still long, and we are about to start the revolution of Syria so that we can transform Syria and make Syria a country of work and prosperity. And from here, we confirm that Syria will commit to strengthening the investment climate in Syria so that we
So, Trump is inking these deals with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and now Syria is like, we want to be We want to be a place for investment as well. We want you to come and invest here. So it's kind of this idea of peace and economic prosperity is kind of contagious, isn't it? It seems like it's contagious. Obviously, we need to pray for persecuted Christians in Syria. That's still a huge problem. But it's just I'm just putting data points out there at this point. Donald Trump asking yesterday what he thinks about Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. Supposedly they were supposed to meet in let's see here, is in Istanbul. So in Turkey. Vladimir Putin saying he's sending an envoy. Vladimir Putin is not going to be there himself to meet Zelensky, which I think they're meeting today.
Happens on Thursday. If President Putin doesn't show up in Turkey for the talks with Ukraine, what will you do?
Well, I don't know if he's showing up. I know he would like me to be there, and that's a possibility. If we could end the war, I'd be thinking about that. Now, tomorrow, we're all booked out. You understand that? We're all set.
But you move. He goes.
UAE tomorrow. And so we have a very full situation. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't do it to save a lot of lives and come back. But, yeah, I think they're thinking about something. I don't know that he would be there if I'm not there. We're going to find out. Marco is going.
So Marco Rubio is in Istanbul. Here's Trump earlier this morning in the UAE.
No, I didn't anticipate. I actually said, why would he go if I'm
Because Putin is not there. Listen.
No, are you disappointed by that?
No, I didn't anticipate. I actually said, why would he go if I'm not going? Because I wasn't going to go. I wasn't planning to go. I would go, but I wasn't planning to go. And I said, I don't think he's going to go if I don't go. And that turned out to be right. But we have people there. Marco, as you know, is doing a fantastic job. Marco's there, Secretary of State, and we have people there. But I didn't think it was possible.
So essentially what I'm gathering from this is this Russian envoy is meeting with Zelensky, if they in fact are meeting now, and I don't know because I don't have anything live in front of me, to see if Zelensky is actually serious about doing something. And if they're serious about doing something, it occurs to me, well, did Clandestine say the same thing? Yeah, so War Clandestine, who really follows this stuff, says Putin confirmed he will not be headed to negotiations with Zelensky in Istanbul on Thursday, but will send a delegation led by Vladimir Medinsky. Rubio will be in attendance as well. My guess is that Trump and Putin's teams will feel out the situation to see if Zelensky is serious about making a deal to end the war, and if so, Trump and Putin could potentially arrive Friday to finalize the peace deal. That would make the most sense based on Trump's comments from Air Force One. So is Zelensky serious this time? I don't know. You know what's funny is we kind of have a tale of two conflicts, and as I've said, it doesn't make any sense to go to war with Iran if the U.S. truly wants to normalize relationships with Russia. It seems like you're going to have peace with Russia and Ukraine and peace with Iran, or you're not going to have any peace at all, is what it seems like to me. But what's another interesting thing is there are people saying that if the Ukraine-Russia war ends, that they'll have to hold elections in Ukraine, and Zelensky will lose, and Zelensky will be out. There are also people saying that if the war in Gaza, the West Bank, and this conflict with Iran settles down, that Benjamin Netanyahu will also lose power. I find that fascinating, if true, that the only thing that's keeping somebody like Benjamin Netanyahu in power is an ongoing conflict, a war. And the same is true for Volodymyr Zelensky. The only thing keeping him in power is keeping the conflict going as well. Just something to think about as we pray for peace and the end of bloodshed across our world. Let me know what you think about that. Then we have this. Okay, we mentioned this earlier, but Donald Trump posting this on Truth Social. Big case today in the United States Supreme Court. Birthright citizenship was not meant for people taking vacations to become permanent citizens of the United States of America and bringing their families with them, all the time laughing at the suckers that we are. The United States of America is the only country in the world that does this. For what reason, nobody knows, but the drug cartels love it. We are, for the sake of being politically correct, a stupid country, but in actuality, this is the exact opposite of being politically correct, and it is yet another point that leads to the dysfunction of America. Birthright citizenship is about the babies of slaves. As conclusive proof, this is going to trigger the panels on CNN for sure, because you can't even talk about it. You know, you're not a white person's not even supposed to mention the fact that slavery used to exist. It's too triggering. As conclusive proof, the Civil War ended in 1865, he writes. The bill went to Congress less than a year later in 1866. And passed shortly after that. It had nothing to do with illegal immigration for people wanting to scam our country from all parts of the world, which they have done for many years. It had to do with the Civil War results and the babies of slaves who our politicians felt correctly needed protection. Please explain this to the Supreme Court of the United States. Again, remember, the Civil War ended in 1865 and the bill goes to Congress in 1866. We didn't have people pouring into our country from all over South America and the rest of the world. It wasn't even a subject. What we had were the babies of slaves. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Good luck with this very important case. God bless the USA. Again, I sincerely doubt, and I hope I'm wrong. I don't think John Roberts is going to rule with the conservatives on this. And I certainly don't think Amy Coney Barrett is going to rule either. I don't think Amy Coney Barrett can put what are typical female emotional concerns aside and actually rule on the letter of the law here. I don't think she can do it. I hope I'm wrong. Just my 2 cents. In other news, Rod D. Martin over on X reporting about the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has fired top intel officials in a massive deep state purge. He says Tulsi Gabbard just removed National Intelligence Council leadership, acting chair Mike Collins and Deputy Maria Langdon Rykoff, amid serious allegations of anti-Trump bias. I hear former CIA Director John Brennan is totally against this move, which is how you know it's a good move. He goes on, Rod D. Martin goes on, Collins faced whistleblower complaints for deliberately undermining the Trump administration and was linked to the Hunter Biden laptop letter that falsely claimed Russian disinformation. These career bureaucrats have been weaponizing intelligence against Trump. The other fired employee, Langdon Rykoff, pushed DEI while showing extreme anti-Trump bias per multiple sources. Elections just don't matter when deep staters are protecting our democracy. The intel oligarchy is still alive and well, and there's plenty of holdouts that need to be let go. Okay, so we have this little controversy, which I think is hilarious. Arby's... I can't believe this was made it into a controversy. So apparently Matt Walsh is a big fan of Arby's fast food. Back in 2017, Matt Walsh said, what people don't seem to understand is that Arby's is actually the best fast food. Okay, that's what he said. Well, Arby's went out there and actually tweeted about bringing back a menu item called the Ham and Swiss. Arby's said this, quote, unlike Dad, our Ham and Swiss, unlike Dad, our Ham and Swiss actually came back. To which James Lindsay, atheist James Lindsay, who has this woke right conspiracy that also has to do with anti-Christian nationalism, where he thinks that the outspoken Christian nationalists are really part of a Fed op to get a real crackdown on Christian nationalists. It's quite stupid. But atheist James Lindsay says Arby's is trying to appeal to woke right demographics. That's curtains for them. Cringe AF. The fact that Arby's made a joke about dads abandoning their families. So James Lindsay thinks that this tweet by Arby's is woke right. Okay. So Matt Walsh takes these two screenshots and then says, oh no, maybe I'm woke right after all. As a joke. He's saying this as a joke. Of course, Lindsay's been accusing him of being woke right anyway. And then Lindsay says, you are apparently. It didn't have to be this way, and it's bad. So then Lindsay goes and then posts that clip, that tweet, oh no, maybe I'm woke right after all, where that was clearly a joke, and posts it without any context to actually claim that Matt Walsh is admitting to being woke right, which at this point I don't even think he even cares. He writing, my tweet was a joke in reference to the fact that I like Arby's. James included it here without that context. He is nothing but a smear merchant, and I'm glad that now any honest person can see it. Now, so we're kind of violating our rule here. Our friend Charles Haywood, we did an interview about James Lindsay last week on this show, and he was urging us to just quit talking about James Lindsay because nobody on the left pays attention to James Lindsay. It's only people on the right that pay attention to him. Anyway, it's just pretty funny to me. All from you talk about the butterfly effect, you know. Arby's makes a joke about deadbeat dads, yada yada yada. You know, James Lindsay slanders Matt Walsh, which is exactly what happened. Folks, it's now time for my favorite segment of the day. When we get to do it on a daily basis. You guys know what it is.
And let us confess our faith today in the words of the Sparkle Creed. I believe in the non-binary God.
And now it's time for I'm Already Against Women Clergy. You don't have to convince me.
All right, so for this edition of I'm Already Against Women Clergy, you don't have to convince me. It comes from this X post by Sarah Fields. She writes, you're not a pastor, your religion is wokeism. Gird up your loins, folks. This is going to be kind of cringe to get through.
I'm a pastor of course, I believe that all lives matter, but right now, black lives are the ones under attack. I'm a pastor. Of course, I take seriously God's command to welcome those who are foreigners in your land because you too are once strangers in a strange land. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe in the separation of church and state, which means theology never gets codified into law. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe in healing brokenness, but you will never hear about shame, judgment, or even sin at this church.
Wow, you'll never hear about sin at the church? You'll never hear about sin. Wow. This pastor's leading people on a path to hell, I can tell you that much.
I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe that all lives are sacred, which means that women and those who can bear children should make the decisions that they, their doctor, their family, and
women and those that can bear children. What are you talking about, dudes?
their God believes is best for them. I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe in the salvific nature of the cross, but it was because Jesus non-violently stood up to empire and refused to fight back or back down, not because some immature, unhealthy parent of a God required blood and guts.
Wow. That is blasphemy. That's the one that got me. All of it others bad, but you see where it all leads. Like if you compromise on one on one Christian doctrine of the Bible, you start to compromise on all of them. So it's just like, the idea women pastors lead to homosexual pastors, and then those female homosexual pastors obviously end up saying, yeah, this salvation was accomplished by the cross, but not because God required a blood sacrifice. No, but it was accomplished because then calling the God of heaven, calling God the Father an immature God that requires blood and guts. That's just a total. It's just a total distortion of. Why does Hebrews say that the blood of bull and goats could never take away our sins? It required the blood of God-man, and the scriptures that talk about how life is in the blood. It's always been about the blood of Jesus that cleanses us from our sins. And yeah, it was required by God in order to maintain his justice and also give us mercy and grace. But the slippery slope is real.
I'm a pastor. Of course, I believe we should be exactly as God designed us to be, which means that queer lives are worthy, divine, beloved, and acceptable exactly as they are. No exceptions.
So when I call it the woke sex religion, ladies and gentlemen, you know why I call it the woke sex religion. That's literally what this is.
This has been I'm Already Against Women Clergy. You don't have to convince me.
I want to tell you about Curable Premium CBD and the CBD oils, the tinctures, as well as the muscle creams and the gummies that can get you to sleep. They now have melatonin in them. At Curable, folks, they not only till the soil, they plant the seed, they also harvest the hemp, they extract the hemp. They do all of this themselves, and they send it to a third party to verify no chemicals, to verify potency. CBD is fantastic at fighting inflammation. CBD is incredible if you want to get off of the hamster wheel that is ibuprofen, Tylenol, Aleve. I want you to try it for yourself. I want you to do your research, just like any product. Go to curable.com, Kuribl.com. And when you check out, you can use promo code Paul20 and save 20%. Curable, prides itself on offering you the best CBD that that you can get. It really truly is. But they also want it to be at a competitive price. And if you actually look at the 300 milligrams there, or the 2,000 milligrams that you get in the bottle of the muscle cream, you're not going to get that potent of a cream at that price anywhere else. So I want you to go there now, curable.com, Kuribl.com, and use promo code Paul20. When you do, you save 20%. It's always great. We love the people at Curable. Justin Finneman is a great man, great person, and we're supposed to be talking to him soon, so hopefully we'll get that going. Folks, that's all the time that I have for this edition. Oh, actually, do I have... no, I'm out of time. I was going to share some positive stuff. I'll save it for tomorrow. Unless I'm providentially hindered, I will see you here. Wishing you a happy Thursday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your... I'll be wishing you a happy Friday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. God bless everybody out there watching.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based